The women's 5,000 meters at the U.S. Olympic trials delivered one of the most intense and technically demanding races of the entire season. In this video, we take a detailed look at how the race developed lap by lap, why the early pace completely changed the dynamics of the field, and how the leading athletes used strategy instead of emotion to stay alive in the fight for Olympic qualification. We'll break down the tactical intelligence of the front pack, the silent moves that reshaped the race, and the devastating final kick that destroyed the field in the closing laps. From controlled positioning to pure survival under pressure, this race became a masterclass in championship distance running and one of the craziest women's 5,000 meters battles Team USA has produced in years.
Parker Valby and Elle St. Now they're all starting to position themselves and jostle very early. They don't want to get caught in the pack and get caught in the traffic and risk catching a heel or a toe or falling early. They want to find their own space, so Parker Valby goes to the front.
And she might have her eye on the clock. She does not have the Olympic standard in this event. She has run 14:52 point something, so she is just off the Olympic standard in this event, and I wouldn't be surprised if she keeps her eye on the clock. She is used to running all on her own. She is used to tempoing things and running very, very fast. I think we might be seeing that right now. She's just going to set off on a mission to get the job done tonight.
Well, you saw Elle St. there. You had a quick shot of her. Elle St. Elise Cranny, Karissa Schweizer, and Elle St. Pierre are the four women who have the Olympic standard. Going back to that time that Kara mentioned, it's 14 minutes, 52 seconds even.
And just since we are speaking of moms, in third place, Rachel Smith made this team 3 years ago for Tokyo, and she also has a daughter, Nova, who was born a month before Elle St. Pierre gave birth to Ivan, and she's returned great from her pregnancy.
By the way, just a little side note, we've mentioned Elise Cranny and Elle St. Pierre quite a bit already. They're both doing the double. They're doing the 5,000, 1,500 double, and both prefer the 1,500, but they both do really well at this distance as well.
It's really incredible, and especially for Cranny, who's run so well in the 10,000. She's a national champion in the 10,000 meters, but she just said, you know what, I love the 1,500. That's my favorite event. I'm more suited for the 5,000, so I'm comfortable running that. But my true love is the 1,500. We see St. Pierre there just comfortable. Look at how comfortable she looks. She is just going to jog through this as easily as she can until the kicking starts later and the pace really starts to quicken.
And ahead of her is one of four Olympians in this field. That's Elle St. She was a Rio Olympian, so watch for Emily. We'll continue to monitor that. She sits second at the moment. But let's check in with the guys in the field. Paul, Trey?
Yeah, we wanted to get you the last field event and the qualifying of the women's discus, where Lisa Allman cheering on her daughter Val Allman, the reigning Olympic champion from Tokyo. And Trey, she didn't spend a lot of time in the infield today.
No, I talked to her and her coach in her last little shakeout, and they said, we're ready. And I was like, what does that mean? And well, this is what it means. A meet record right there. Coming back over, hugging Coach Zeb Zion. Fantastic way to start. One and done for the American record holder, Valerie Allman.
She was 23 feet better than the next nearest competitor, a new meet record. And get yourself in the final with those 11 other women. And the discus final, Lee, is on Thursday night.
That's a victory with authority. It's quite the disparity between first and second there as we bring you back to the final of the women's 5,000, currently being led by Parker Valby.
Well, they're running right at about 15-minute pace, but Lee, I'm very impressed by Parker Valby. She is not intimidated by any of these women. She's running against some of the best runners America has produced, and she says, you know what, I feel comfortable in the front, I feel comfortable controlling the effort, and she's doing just that.
So here at Hayward Field at the 2024 NCAA Championships, she swept both this distance and the 10,000 meters as well. A lot of miles in those legs this year.
A lot of miles. I have to tell you, though, the women in back of her are happy that she's taking this lead. That means they don't have to do any work. They don't have to think. They're able to just ride this train until they need to think about positioning and kicking over the final mile or so. So Parker Valby has put herself out front, and all the women in back of her are happy to do that and ride this train.
There's several very wise and experienced women further back, like Elle St. Pierre. There's Elise Cranny, and don't discount Karissa Schweizer either. Watch for them to make their move, but we've got plenty of time left, 8.5 laps remaining. Wood Field in Eugene, Oregon. She's got Olympian Rachel Smith right behind her, who knows what it's like to represent Team USA, and so too do the three women behind her as well. St. Pierre, Cranny and Schweizer, here they come.
This is very impressive, Lee. Parker Valby is going out and pacing these women at Olympic standard pace. They are currently on 14 minutes 50-second pace. That is under the Olympic standard of 14:52. And only 4 women in this race have that standard, but look at this train who is riding on her and hoping that she's going to pull them to that time and a spot on the team. I'm just so impressed. She is so unintimidated. She understands the assignment, and she's going to make it happen.
Her folks have been following her around this year in an RV. They brought the RV to nearby Springfield, and Parker was staying with them prior to the trial starting before she moved into a hotel. But pretty cool family story, and talented young woman leading this field.
I do want you to look at St. Pierre and look at Cranny and just look at how relaxed they are. They're just riding this train. This is a pace that is not easy, but well within their wheelhouse. And they're just happy to have her pull this out and get the separation in the field over the next few laps. It's just less bodies to contend with later on in the race.
Elise Cranny had a pretty substantial coaching change and joined new coach Jared Kornfeld earlier this year in March, and she said, look, it's just a change of scenery, a change of environment. She said, I feel rejuvenated. I feel refreshed and rejuvenated, and I've also kind of gone back to my old just racing on instinct as opposed to racing to a plan. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes, you know, the further you get up that chain and higher on the podium, the more you start to second guess things. And one of the things that Cranny has is amazing instinct. She knows when to go. We saw it in the semi when that whole race slowed to a start and she didn't want to be leading. All of a sudden she found herself in the lead, but she just trusted her instinct. She knew when it was time to press, and she really looks very, very comfortable. So does Karissa Schweizer right behind her. They're former teammates, former training partners. And Schweizer is finally healthy for the first time in a long time, and she is fit, so she's going to hang on to this as well. She's very much so capable of kicking with the best of them.
Karissa said after the prelims that she hasn't been this confident in a couple of years, and when you're dealing with injuries and you've had to come back from that, that's totally understandable, but she's dangerous. That's number 8 in the red and white. Keep an eye out for her. She's got Whitney Morgan right behind her, number 11.
And Whitney Morgan is also coming back from a surgery, started running again in April. This is impressive out of her on such a shortened build up to this Olympic trials. She's hanging in there tough right now.
Parker Valby has led from the beginning. Can she stay there? She'll be looking up. See that glance up to the left? She's looking up at the big screen because she wants to see who's immediately behind and has anything changed behind her.
You know, she is looking back. She sees that Josette Andrews has dropped back a little bit. You can see her now leading that second pack. She's the other woman that has the Olympic standard, and she really needs to close that gap because these women up front are running so fast. They are going to get that standard if they keep this up. But look at St. Pierre in 3rd position, just bouncing off the track. You can even see it in her ponytail. She is just getting bounced off of that track.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Here they come. Treating the collegian like a pacer, almost.
Well, you know, all's fair in love and making the Olympic team, Lee. They're going to take advantage of Valby in front as long as they want. She's dragging them to a fast time. She's helping them separate from the rest of the field.
Tell you another thing, in addition to her young son, Ivan, that's powering Elle St. Pierre, she comes from a multi-generational dairy farming family in Vermont. She trains remotely, and she said, look, to run with the support of a small community behind me, I'm not only running for myself and my husband and my family name, I'm running for that community who have given me so much support over the years. She represents the farming and rural community in Vermont. She's very proud of that fact.
She really is proud of that fact. She feels so connected. That's her and her husband, Jamie. Her with the cows. She loves being outside. She loves being in nature. She loves the cows. She loves working with the cows and even milking the cows. And now we see the sugar shack on her family's farm that her great-great-grandfather built. She feels such a connection to that property and to that community. And there we get to see her little son, Ivan.
Cheering Mummy on, and cheering Mummy on just for another 3 laps. We're getting down towards the end of this. And if you were to look at this group...
The women's 5,000 meters final at the U.S. Olympic trials evolved into a race defined not simply by endurance, but by tactical violence and elite-level composure under pressure. What made this race extraordinary was the complete absence of hesitation. From the opening lap, the leading athletes refused to allow the race to settle into a passive championship rhythm. Instead of waiting for the final kilometer, the field was forced into sustained discomfort almost immediately, transforming the event into a prolonged test of aerobic control, positioning discipline, and psychological resistance. The early pace was aggressive enough to string the field into a long line before the race had even properly stabilized. Athletes who normally survive through tactical patience suddenly had no protection from the pace. Every runner was exposed physically and mentally. Elise Cranny immediately looked comfortable operating near the front, maintaining efficient mechanics while never wasting movement. Her stride frequency remained controlled, and she consistently avoided drifting wide on the turns, something that became critically important later in the race as positioning turned into a weapon. Karissa Schweizer also demonstrated exceptional discipline during the opening stages. Rather than responding emotionally to every small acceleration, she held a measured rhythm and protected her energy reserves. That restraint mattered because the race quickly developed into one where oxygen debt accumulated earlier than expected. Several athletes attempted to maintain contact through effort alone, but the pace demanded efficiency rather than courage. By 2,000 meters, the field had already begun to split into functional groups, with the leaders operating at a level that only a handful could realistically sustain. Parker Valby's presence added another fascinating dimension to the race. Her running style looked almost deceptively relaxed compared to the tension visible in many others around her. She floated through the middle laps with smooth turnover and minimal upper body movement, refusing to panic despite the relentless pace. For long stretches, she appeared perfectly balanced between patience and readiness, understanding that the race would ultimately be decided not by one dramatic move, but by repeated micro-decisions over the final laps. As the race approached 3,000 meters, the emotional atmosphere changed completely. The pace itself remained honest, but the body language inside the lead pack began revealing who was truly in control and who was beginning to survive. This is where Elle St became increasingly dangerous. Unlike athletes who announce their intentions with aggressive surges, she improved position gradually and intelligently. She moved through tiny openings without disrupting rhythm, preserving momentum, while others were forced to accelerate repeatedly just to maintain placement. That distinction became massive because every unnecessary acceleration costs energy in a race already operating near physiological limits. Cranny still looked composed and technically sharp, but the effort required to maintain the front had started to increase. Schweizer remained attached, carefully protecting inside position while avoiding contact. Behind them, athletes were no longer racing the leaders directly. They were racing collapse. With 4 laps remaining, the race transformed from controlled suffering into open combat. The tempo increased again, but this time the acceleration carried real destructive intent. The lead group instantly became smaller. Athletes who had looked stable for nearly 10 minutes suddenly lost contact within a few hundred meters. The brutality of championship distance running was fully exposed. There are no dramatic crashes in these moments, only tiny losses of rhythm that become irreversible. St. Pierre's movement before the bell lap was perhaps the most impressive tactical moment of the entire race. She positioned herself perfectly without overcommitting too early. Instead of launching a reckless surge, she maintained pressure continuously, forcing everyone around her to operate at maximum concentration. Cranny responded immediately, refusing to surrender even a single meter. Schweizer stayed locked in as well, creating a 3-way battle built entirely on resilience and execution. Then came the final lap, and the race exploded. The bell triggered an immediate increase in cadence from the leaders. What had already been a punishing pace suddenly became something entirely different. The final 400 meters were not about endurance anymore. They were about who could access another level of biomechanical efficiency while already operating deep inside exhaustion. Arms became more violent, knee lift increased, and every athlete fought to prevent technical breakdown. St. Pierre's finishing speed was devastating because it arrived with such control. Her posture remained stable even while accelerating, allowing her to maintain efficiency when others were beginning to tighten. Cranny attempted to answer with her own kick, and for several seconds the two appeared locked together in a pure test of willpower. Schweizer also fought desperately to stay connected, refusing to concede the Olympic place. The final 200 meters became one of the most savage closing sequences of the trials. The leaders were no longer simply racing the clock or the field. They were attacking each other psychologically with every stride. Each acceleration forced an immediate decision from the others: respond instantly or lose the race forever. What separated the winners in the end was not raw talent alone. It was their ability to preserve composure while the race disintegrated around them. The athletes who reached the Olympic team did so because they combined aerobic strength, tactical intelligence, positional awareness, and the courage to suffer at exactly the right moment. This was not a chaotic race built on randomness. It was a masterclass in championship distance, running where every lap carried tactical meaning and every movement mattered. The pace destroyed hesitation. The final kilometers exposed weakness, and the closing lap delivered one of the most ruthless finishing battles seen in American women's distance running in years.